What is up, everybody? Welcome back to another Pitching Ninja's Filthiest Pitches of the Day. Remember, before we get to those pitches, hit that subscribe button. Be a part of the biggest and best daily baseball show on YouTube. And now, without further ado, here are my filthiest pitches of the day. I'm going to start with Gavin Stone, who had 3 Ks in 2 innings, but kind of got shelled. Despite giving up a bunch of runs, he did show off a nasty changeup and got 8 whiffs on that change in only 2 innings. Of course, the bad part is he only lasted 2 innings, but I'm always searching for a little bit of sunshine. Normally, I wouldn't feature a pitcher who gave up 7 runs in 2 innings, but Stone's changeup was the feature of my pregame Peacock segment before this game, and it also gives me a chance to show off my new Pitching Ninja supermodel, Shane McClanahan, who was in the opposing dugout. Garrett Cole went 6 innings with 9 Ks, nice, and got those Ks on his fastballs, knuckle curves, and sliders. I love this sequence here with this 96-mile-an-hour fastball up and in, followed by an 88-mile-an-hour knee-buckling slider. As this overlay shows, this is not very fair, and I think I'm going to have to report Cole for bullying. But I'll give Cole a pass, because he was also on the bump for this Little League home run. Lord, this is terrible. Cole outdueled Yu Darvish, who only went 2 2/3 innings, giving up 7 runs, and had these 2-seamers. Eduardo Rodriguez had 6 Ks in 6 innings, giving up only 1 run, and had this nasty back foot slider, as well as these cutters and 2-seamers. And he faced off against Dylan Cease, who had 8 Ks in 4 innings, but gave up 4 earned runs. He, of course, had his usual mix of fastballs and sliders, but he also had this beautiful changeup at 74 miles an hour. That thing just floats on in there. Here are a couple of overlays of Cease's knuckle curve and fastball, as well as his fastball and slider, and I think these are both good illustrations of why hitters swing at breaking balls in the dirt. And when Cease is on, he gets a lot of these swings. Kyle Bradish had 4 Ks in 6 2/3 innings, giving up only 1 run, and his breaking balls really jumped out at me. Both his curveballs and sliders were wicked. And when Bradish is on, he is really tough to hit and really has ace-type stuff. Speaking of future aces, Eury Perez, at only 20 years old, looked dominant again. He had 3 Ks in 5 scoreless innings and featured his upper 90s fastball as well as this breaking ball. Merrill Kelly was outstanding with 10 Ks in 6 1/3 innings, giving up only 1 earned run on 4 hits. He had this pretty front door 2-seamer, these sliders, and changeups. He faced Tanner Houck, who had these splitters and fastball, and had 4 Ks in 4 innings, but gave up 4 runs. Jose Barrios had 5 Ks in 5 2/3 scoreless innings, and had this dirty changeup, as well as this front door breaking ball, and a breaking ball for a sword. He faced Bailey Ober, who had this fastball and changeup, and had 7 Ks in 5 innings. Marco Gonzalez had 4 Ks in 5 2/3 innings, giving up only 1 run, and had this changeup and cutter. He faced Luis Ortiz, who had 6 strikeouts in 5 innings, giving up 3 earned runs, and got those Ks on fastballs and sliders. Colin Ray had 6 Ks in 6 innings, giving up 4 runs, and had this 2-seamer and curveball. Graham Ashcraft showcased these sliders and had 6 Ks in 5 innings, giving up 3 runs. Drew Smiley had this pretty knuckle curve. Christian Javier had 3 Ks in 5 innings thanks to his elevated fastballs. He really struggled a little bit in this game with command, but still gave up only 1 run. Daniel Lynch had 6 Ks in 5 1/3 innings thanks to his slider and changeup. And he faced off against yesterday's co-filthiest pitcher of the day, MacKenzie Gore. MacKenzie Gore was outstanding with 11 strikeouts in 7 innings, giving up only 1 run. And his breaking ball stole the show. He had these dirty curveballs and absolutely wicked sliders, and picked up a White Castle special on those sliders. And Gore also had these heaters, which sets up his breaking stuff really well. At only 24 years old, he's got a huge future ahead of him. My other co-filthiest starter of the day was Spencer Strider. Strider set the record for the fastest to 100 Ks in a season since 1893. And he did it thanks to his mix of absolutely overpowering fastballs of up to 100 miles an hour. If you want to see what makes Strider's fastball one of the best fastballs in the game, check out this home plate view. You can see how well that pitch keeps its plane. And if you blink, it is right by you. Strider also relied on his filthy sliders. And here's an overlay of his fastball and slider, and you can see how that slider tunnels with his fastball and then drops to the dirt. He also even worked in a couple of effective changeups. And here are some overlays of his changeups with his fastball. And you can see how those pitches really set up each other. And Strider did all of this despite the fact that one of his feet is on backwards. How impressive is that? Strider was also the beneficiary of this outstanding catch by Michael Harris. Very Ken Griffey-esque. I mentioned that Strider broke the record for the fastest to 100 Ks. He did it in 61 innings. The previous fastest was Jacob deGrom doing it in 61 2/3 innings. And not coincidentally, that's who Strider modeled his slider after, in addition to modeling his mechanics after. Here's Strider discussing his slider in my interview with him, and why the shape of the slider is so important for tunneling.
Last year when I learned a slider, I've never been able to spin the ball. I've always been so naturally behind the ball that supinating or pronating has been very difficult. And so the slider I got from Jacob deGrom, when we sat down, we were like, okay, let's look at the metrics and the on track. And then we saw the tunneling sheet between the fastball and the curveball I was throwing, and just there was no tunneling going on whatsoever. The curveball was a good pitch metrically, but it did not pair with my fastball. And so we thought, what's similar fastball, upper 90s, Jacob deGrom, his slider stays with that fastball for so long. It's not it doesn't have the most depth of any slider for sure, but it pairs perfectly with its fastball. And so I thought, well, what are some checkpoints that I can hit here? Spin axis and velocity. That's all I'm going to care about. I'm not going to worry about the movement, the depth, the shape, just spin axis and velocity. If those things are right, the pitch will be good. It'll tunnel with my fastball. To supinate, because I'm so naturally behind the ball, I grabbed the ball like this and I thought, I need to come through this way. I don't. I throw it like this, but I needed to feel this supination where my fingers are at the front of the ball. And so I tucked my thumb under the ball, grabbed around the front part of the horseshoe where it comes around, the top, and I'm hooked on here with my two fingers. And I just think, throw a karate chop. And that locked my wrist here. So rather than being here, which is how I thought about it, it's really here. And I'm able to be on the front of the ball and pull the top of the seams there. And I get that gyro spin. And as I've gotten better with it, and as my arm has learned how to supinate more, now I'm getting, instead of like 10 o'clock spin, I'm getting 8 o'clock spin. And I start to get feel for like a 7 o'clock spin where I can almost roll the curveball out sometimes and like sort of freeze a guy or steal a strike.
Now on to my filthiest relievers. Matt Brash had this wicked slider. Jordan Hicks had this 103-mile-an-hour heater, 102-mile-an-hour heater, and this 100-mile-an-hour two-seamer that broke 16 inches. Alexis Diaz had these fastballs and nasty slider. Yanier Cano had this filthy changeup and K-stare. Luis Medina had this dirty curveball. Taylor Saucedo had these changeups and fastball. Trevor Richards had this sick changeup. Jordan Romano had this overpowering fastball and wicked sliders. Alex Lang had these absolute hammers. He's really turned himself into one of the best relief pitchers in baseball. That mock turtleneck really gives superpowers. Devin Williams had this fastball and UFO airbenders. Jason Adam had this sweeper that broke 21 inches back to the plate. Yeah, I'd be left staring at that thing too. But my filthiest reliever of the day was Felix Bautista. Look at this absolutely devastating stuff from the mountain. These flaming fastballs and vicious splitters. And if that fastball looks like it goes on a straight line to the plate, well, it's because it kinda does. This fastball dropped only 4 inches on the way to home plate. That's how much Bautista's fastball fights gravity. And here's that fastball overlaid with a splitter. And you can see how those pitches tunnel and that splitter totally disappears. When Bautista has his best stuff, hitting against him is totally unfair. And now, my pitching ninja moment of zen. It's John Grise, aka Uncle Rico, throwing out the first pitch. how much you want to make a bet I can throw that baseball over that elephant. The funnier thing is, he throws less like Uncle Rico than Jimmy the Human Glitch Herget. What is up, everybody? My picks of the day today are a 3-leg parlay. I'm going to start out with Taj Bradley for 5Ks or more, and take Bobby Miller for 5Ks or more, and top it off with Michael Kopech for 7Ks or more. What would your picks of the day be?